the way they straight up disrespected my king right here has made me make this video. I am putting matters and I am putting fate into my own hands. And what if I told you that I can also put fate right into your hands? All you have to do really quick before we move on with the video is just avoid the GOAT. If you somehow find a way to pick the box that does have Bio Broly in it, that means you got caught lacking today. All you gotta do is avoid Bio Broly. If you get caught lacking, if you pick the box with Broly behind, Bio Broly of course, since that means you got caught lacking, you gotta subscribe to the channel and drop down and give me 3 push-ups. It is what it is. However, if you manage to pick the box that does not have the GOAT behind it, that means you win. Alright, all we're trying to do is for people who don't want Bio Broly in part 2 to avoid him. Now, of course, if he comes anyways, that's not my problem. Here we go. Let's take a quick look at it, or take a quick gander at, not a gander. What am I talking about? Pick a box. Hurry up. What are you doing? Why haven't you picked the box yet? I'll give you 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1. If you pick the box to the left, congratulations, you managed to avoid the GOAT. Which means that if you pick the box to the right, you got caught lagging today. You gotta subscribe to the channel. It is what it is. If you pick the box to the left, don't worry about subscribing. Don't worry about doing any of that. Just watch the video and enjoy. Since I'm taking matters into my own hands, there are some videos I used to do where I would try and not say predict the EZA, but try and give what I want for the EZA. And sometimes these builds may be a little too OP. I don't intend, it's gonna be funny because I'm gonna say I don't intend them to be OP and then watch someone think that this build I made is OP. But I really want you to let me know what you think about the way I designed this EZA for LR Tech Broly, you know, assuming he's gonna get one, which I think he definitely should, and he definitely will, right? But these types of videos are pretty simple. I'm gonna go over what the weaknesses of the characters are, and then essentially my solutions to them, and why I designed the character the way that I did. So hopefully you enjoy, and again, I definitely appreciate some feedback around that. I did not really touch the leader skills since that doesn't really matter, to be honest. First things first, the base form, or not base, but the Super Saiyan Broly. Here, the weakness with him obviously is no stat raises on 12 and 18 key. No start of turn attack and defense, and that is unfortunately something that, you know, a character that Broly also doesn't have, and no start of turn buffs, no stat increases on 12 or 18 key, which to be fair, is fair, because this character is one of the, like, OG, like, hardest hitting characters in the game. And that's why you got to be really, really, really careful with just giving this guy just straight up buffs and straight up stats. Because since he is already, I'm not saying he is the hardest hitting character in the game, right? But it's like he can already do insane numbers. So you can't just jack this up to like 200% or something. It's just not going to be fair. So you kind of just have to give him some other mechanics that make him good both offensively and or defensively. And that's also what I did. Another weakness or thing that I don't really like at all is the additional chance of super is a medium chance when facing only one enemy. I mean, that's not great, right? And then before transformation, Broly has a guaranteed super, but only facing when facing 2 or more enemies. That condition is really annoying. Most of the bosses in the game are not 2 or more enemies, so literally his passive is just this for most of the game, which isn't really the way it should be. So I mean, and I didn't really design this character with 2 or more enemies in mind. I just don't really like that at all. So let me just show you what I did here, okay? So first things first, this is what I did for base, or I keep saying base, but it's the base form of Super Saiyan Broly, okay? He is stacking defense on both 12 and 18 key. The reason why I did that is because this Broly is not a great defensive character by any means of the imagination, and I want Broly to be good defensively. Obviously, he'll be better when he transforms, of course, but I want this character to be able to survive, right, before his transformation. Keep in mind, his transformation is not an active skill. It is an immediate thing. Like, the moment turn 4, or, like, let's say you have this guy on turn 3, and you float him off, even when he comes back, basically on his 4th turn, or whenever he comes back in his past 4 turns, you understand how it works. Why am I explaining that? On the 4th turn, he will automatically transform into Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. So I wanted to make sure that he's at least getting as many stacks as possible, which is why I gave it to him both 12 and 18 key. Let's move on and just read it though. So superclass enemies attack and defense minus 30%. I simply gave him this because I wanted him to have a way, if possible, because not all enemies allow you to do this, but some enemies that do allow you to debuff them, will also make him and the entire team a little bit better, right? Offensively and defensively. Defensively, of course, because they're going to look better defensively because either they're lowering their attack, or you're going to be able to do a little bit more damage because you're lowering their defense, right? So just a little thing here just to make him, this Broly, slightly better offensively and or defensively, and also to help the team. But again, it's a slight thing that I wanted to include because I didn't want to really give him this guy like a lot of support or anything like that. I was just kind of... But it's something, it's there and it's useful if it's possible, right? Anyways, 3 key and 90% to stats. Attack and defense plus 90% when performing a super attack. Plus an additional attack and defense plus 60% if it is an ultra a super attack. So big changes here. First things first, I gave him start of turn attack and defense, which is going to make this 90% increase on super a lot stronger, by the way. Remember, when there's a character in the game that raises their stats on super, if they have no start of turn stats, the stats that they're raising are essentially their raw stats, right? Or any other stats that they may have from any other support or links, whatever the case may be. So when you already have stats in the game, the increase of that is going to be, it's multiplicative. You understand that already, right? Now, before EZA, or this EZA concept, every time Broly performed an 18 key, he only raised his attack. And before this concept, it was 50%. So I bumped that up to not only 60%, but gave it both attack and defense. So essentially, he's getting start of turn 90% of stats. He gets the same 90% when performing a normal super attack. And then he gets 60% to both stats when it's an 18 key. So a lot of multiplicative buffs here. Of course, he is not a slot 1 demon by any means. But when he attacks and gets any additionals or anything, he's going to build his defense fairly quickly. While also being decent defensively. Reduces damage received by 60% at the start of character's attacking turn, and with each turn pass, damage reduction rate minus 15%. This is designed for him to always have damage reduction for the 4 turns, because 4 times 15 does equal 60. In turn 1, he will have 60% damage reduction. If you have him turn 2, he'll have 45. Turn 3, he'll have 15. Sorry. Well, yeah, no, he'll have 50. No, sorry. 45, 30, I can't do math, and then turn 4, which you'll never really see because he'll transform starting from turn 4. He'll technically have 15, I guess, for that 1 turn. I think that's how that would probably work, right? So he'll basically, the first time he transforms, if it's turn 4, he'll have 15% damage reduction. So just keep that in mind. But lowest case scenario, I mean, 30% damage reduction is not bad by any means. Again, having all this damage reduction with all the defensive increases and stacking is going to be good for a character like this. Launches additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super. That's just base kit now. It's going to be a guaranteed attack that has a high chance of becoming a super. And then launches additional super attack when facing a super class enemy or when facing 2 or more enemies. Transform when conditions are met. So again, just adding super class there I think is obviously very, very, very nice. This character can do up to 4 super attacks in a turn. So turn 1, you're at 60% damage reduction. You are lowering their stats if applicable. You have 90% here, an extra 90% on super, an extra 60% to both on 18 key, and then with potential 4 super attacks, you're stacking your defense 4 times. So that means that the next time this guy is on rotation, let's say turn 3, and now you have 30% damage reduction, you at least are going to have 4 defensive stacks, right? So your damage reduction may have gone a little bit lower, but your defense has still shot, not through the roof, but definitely got a lot higher, okay? And then that's basically how I designed this base form here. Now, I would have loved to give this character like just guard or anything, but I don't think they do that, right? I think a damage reduction mechanic that decreases as the rate, as a turn goes on makes a little bit of sense. Not from the standpoint of, oh my god, it's a Broly, right? But just from the standpoint of giving him a little bit extra help defensively while he's on the turn or on the field for 4 turns. And also giving him the ability to tank some hits while he's stacking his defense. So just keep that in mind. Moving on, then we have Legendary Super Saiyan Broly. So we already discussed the details here, or the weaknesses. This guy, again, just does not have any stat raises on 12 and or 18 key, and no start of turn defense. Just a bunch of weaknesses in this kit. let me show you what I did. Quite a bit to go over here. But I really don't think it's too broken. You let me know what you think, okay? So 12 key, raises attack and defense for 1 turn. And then 18 key greatly raises defense for 3 turns. So no stacking of any stat on 12 and or 18 key. He gets 3 key and 100% to stats. So baseline. Attack and defense plus 100% when performing a super attack. Plus an additional attack and defense plus 90% if it is an ultra super attack. So before it was 88, I just added 2% and made it to both attack and defense, and it's literally the same exact thing as this, but now he also has that start of turn attack and defense, making him defend a lot better, and he's going to hit a lot harder because of that. So just keep that in mind. Guards all attacks, and all attacks become critical hits for 3 turns after transformation. So for 3 turns from the first time he appears, he is going to have, guaranteed crits, and he's going to be guarding. Now, he gets defense plus 15% up to 90, and chance to crit plus 10% up to 30 every time guard is activated. So something like Physical Fascia, where Physical Fascia only guards for like 4 turns, but she gets 30% to stats up to like, I think it's like 150 or something every time guard is activated. So basically every time he gets hit while his guard is up, he'll be raising his defense up to 90% and then 30% chance to crit. So again, nothing too strong or OP there, but him being able, at least having some base crit chance that isn't restricted to something, I think is definitely good. And then of course, again, him raising his defense is going to be good here, because even though he's getting all of these stats, I understand that a character like this, even with this 18 key or 12 key or even 18 key, he can definitely get caught. So I want to give him just a little bit of extra defensive juice there, if that makes sense. Key plus 1, maybe I could trim this down to maybe 60 or 30, but we'll see. Anyways, key plus 1 and medium chance of disabling the first action of an enemy at the start of each turn. So this key plus 1 is infinite. Now, again, just keep in mind the only key he's getting in this kit is the 3 key. Maybe, with support, he'll have more key than that. And of course, leader skills, he'll have more key. But I wanted to really represent the mechanic here of him just having infinite. He's getting infinitely stronger, right? His key is infinitely overflowing. Now, there is no overflow mechanic in the game where you can go past 24 key, but I thought it would be cool to at least give him an ability where every time he's appearing, he's starting with just 1 more key, making it a lot easier to get the 12 and or 18 key, depending on the team running and all that stuff. And then a medium chance of disabling the first action of an enemy at the start of each turn. So every time he pops in, he has a 30% chance, basically, to disable the first action of an enemy on the field, which I do think is pretty good. It's not tied to the 18 key here, so for that 1 turn that maybe you miss it, Now I wonder, based off the wording, if this would apply to every enemy's first attack. Like, I don't really know. Let's say you're facing multiple enemies. I wonder how that would work. And I think if I made it high, something about it feels wrong or feels a little bit too OP to me. I don't know what it is, so that's why I made it medium. It still exists, and it would still be really clutch to get. Like, it's a lot better than, depending on 3 dodge for something like that, And a lot of enemies in Dokkan do super, so that's slot 1, so I do think that it could definitely be beneficial when it does proc. Launches 2 additional attacks, each of which has a medium chance of becoming a super. So before transformation, it was 1 guaranteed super. It was an additional attack that has a high chance of becoming a super. And now it's 2 additional attacks, but each has a medium chance to become a super attack. Now keep in mind that this is basically how you want it to be. You don't want it to be like, launches or has launch. You don't want it to be medium chance to launch 2 additional attacks or 2 additional super attacks, whatever the case is. It's good that it's guaranteed, because since he's critting for the first 3 turns, those additionals are going to be crits no matter what, which of course is going to be extremely, extremely valuable. And then of course, he launches additional super attack when facing a super class enemy or when facing 2 or more enemies, and then performs a guaranteed critical hit and medium chance of evading enemies' attacks, including super attacks when facing a Pure Saiyans, Movie Heroes, or Bond of Parent and Child category enemy. I don't think, this is definitely a good kit, very, very strong kit. Would this be considered like top 3 in the game? I don't know. I mean, the guarding and crit for 3 turns is limiting for him. Now, if you can't even get 6 attacks, you won't be able to build this up completely. And if you don't get hit at all, or you try to avoid hits, you're not going to build up any crit. So that's definitely possible as well. The key mechanic is cool, but nothing too OP. The disabling enemy's action once within each turn is medium chance for that to proc infinitely. Definitely has value, but isn't like the most broken defensive mechanic in the game. The strong thing comes when this character is launching 5 super attacks in a turn, which he can do. That's why I made his 12 key just raise attack and defense for 1 turn. Because again, it's like at least you're getting that defensive raise. He's going to be a defensive tank after that. Dude, if he gets 5 super attacks in a turn, where the first one he gets that buff, and then that buff, and then greatly raising defense for 3 turns on top of like the 5 of the, he's going to be pretty strong defensively, I would say, right? That's why I didn't give him any guard, passive 3 turns, and I didn't really give him any damage reduction either. The only damage reduction he kind of has is if he transforms on turn 4, in which he would have technically that 15% damage reduction from his base kit, making his first turn appearance even, or basically that much stronger. But let me know what you think. I mean, how would you have designed it differently? What would you have done? Feel free to build the kit in the comments if you would like. This is just what I want to see, man. And at least something like this, of course, it's not going to be exactly like, of course, it's not going to be exactly, if I can speak English, like this, but the goal here is for him to, like, again, they're not going to increase these numbers by a lot, man. He already hits extremely hard, especially with all the leader skill buffs recently and all the support. Like, he's going to be hitting very, very hard. So just attaching the defense to the 18 key super, as well as giving him start of turn stats, is going to be not enough for him. But you mix those things with some defensive mechanics like disabling enemy's action, with maybe a few turns of guard, a few turns of this, that, and the third, whatever the case is, then it makes sense. He also has a pretty decent kit without having to be super, super restrictive, right? So anyways, let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and good night.